Andres Guerrero.
And where you from and how old are you and all that stuff?
Um, I'm from Portland, Oregon. I live in a foster care home, and I'm I'm 34, turning 35 next week.
Uh-huh.
And what was the other question?
Oh, no, you do it. Just introducing yourself.
Oh,
So, talk to me a little bit. Bob shared you grew up with some challenges. And
yes.
did you get a fair start as a kid, or did you have troubles? Was it unfair the way life started for you?
It was very unfair for me.
Tell me about it.
Um, I got, I had, a dad that was abusive toward me.
Like, what would he do to you, man?
Like, he committed sex crimes against me.
How old were you?
I was, I was, I, I think I was like a baby all the way up to 5 years old. I don't remember anything past 5.
The Do you still talk to your dad at all?
No, I no longer see him or hear from him.
You mad at him?
No, no, I just I am in a way, but I'm not in a way because I know that he probably grew up in the same type of situation as me.
Yeah, it sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to blame somebody, but then they had the same challenge you did.
Yeah.
So can you tell us? Do you remember kind of those sex crimes and stuff that he did to you? Can you remember any of that, or is it too young?
I was too young to. I could barely remember anything because of the fact that I think my mind blocked it because I used to speak Spanish, and I think he was offending me when I was speaking Spanish and only understood Spanish.
That's really interesting. And so now that you don't speak Spanish anymore,
Yeah, and I don't want to
why?
because I'm afraid that everything that has he done to me in the past will come back easily.
And so, what other kind of things did you and your father do? Were there? How long did you stay with your dad?
I stayed with my dad until I was 9 years old.
And did he take you other places that were criminal places and stuff like that? What else? What other kind of stuff did you guys do?
Um, my dad used to abuse the rest of us kids, but he never took us anywhere like against the law. It's more like he was he was always trying to take me to my uncle's house, and I was uncomfortable with it because I didn't know my uncle very well, and I heard he was abusive too. And
Was it like physical abuse, like beating up, as well as sexual? What kind of shit would they do?
like they would sexual abuse and beating up, like get physically harmful toward kids, so, and adults, because they would also hit on their wives. And like my dad also hit on my mom a lot. So he was abusive toward her too.
I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah.
How do you think that affected you? I mean, you forgot a lot of it, but It's sort of like you forget it, but you never forget it, isn't it?
Yeah. How did I what?
How did it affect you when you look back today? What do you think?
Um, it affects me in in a way to where I ended up doing a crime, doing the same type of crime, and it haunts me for the rest of my life because of the fact that I followed my dad's footsteps, and I said when I was 15 I would never do that, and I turned around and did it when I was 15, and out of anger and frustration, and I realized that that's wrong, and I don't I don't ever want to do it again. So
Can you tell me, people do things for different reasons. And sometimes people touch children because they think they're beautiful or because they want to take care of them. Sometimes they teach them because they think they're sexy. Sometimes they touch them because they're mad at them. And they want to
most of the time it was because I was mad at them because they were getting all the attention.
explain.
Um, because when I was in a foster home, like my first foster home I went to was uh, a couple named Bob and Bernie, and basically when they took me in, they had a couple younger kids younger than me that were getting all the attention, and finally I exploded on the when I was 15 and decided to take it out on them instead of telling them how I felt.
It's a really good answer, man. It's a really good answer. I never would have thought of that. That happens. Without being uncomfortable, can you tell a little more of what you did to the kids?
Um, see, I sexually abused a 6-year-old by one forcing her to have sex with me, and I also tried uh, penetrating my brother's anus with my penis, um, and that's it, because I repeated it like 12 times with the girl, and I like did it 3 times with my brother.
What ended up happening?
I ended up going to jail. Well, not really jail. It's like back then I was charged as an adult.
Really?
Yeah. And it was because the Measure 11 just came out that year. And so I got charged as an adult, and I got rape, or I had rape and sex abuse uh, and sodomy. All 3 of those charges, well, 2 of them were dropped. Not dropped, but they were excluded because I decided to come out and tell them, and I pled guilty So they charged me with sex abuse, and they gave me about 6 to 7 years in juvenile prison or jail, juvenile jail. And then from there, I had to do about 5 years of probation. And now I'm off probation and doing a lot better, and I haven't done it since the last time. Since I've been 15, I haven't reoffended, and I'm not going to.
Is it? I'm glad to hear your resolve on that. And is it? Sometimes, like we were talking the other day when we were at Subway, you want a cookie and you force yourself to not eat it. And
Yeah.
so you have a strong will that stops you from doing something. Other times you don't want the cookie.
Yeah.
And both times you don't eat the cookie, but sometimes it's something you want but don't do. Do you still have a drive? Do you still want to, but you have good self-control? How do you think that is?
I don't have a drive anymore, due to the fact that I just totally do not ever want to do that again. And I tell myself every day how I could actually fix that, and that's by not offending. And the only way I can actually do that is to not stay away from kids, but know my boundaries for it.
Tell me more. What do you mean? That's really interesting.
Like me, I can be around kids as long as there's a lot of people around. But I seriously do not feel comfortable when I'm alone with kids. And I haven't been alone with kids since I've been out, which is good. And like, yeah,
That's it's just a good technique for sort of, if you know that's a risk, just don't even put yourself there.
yeah,
Don't let yourself be anywhere near it.
yeah,
That's really smart. It's like staying away from cookies. Just don't go near the darn things.
yeah.
Would you say you're a person that has self-control? And I ask this because I was so impressed with you at the Subway the other day. Do you know how to control yourself? How to control your behavior?
Yes.
Tell me about it.
I know how to control it because of the fact that I get tested every day when I go to work, when I go on the buses, and I don't do it myself. People, like kids, just sit by me. They don't always sit by me, but there's occasions when they do sit by me, and I'm like, I know everybody's around me, and I feel very uncomfortable. So I just say, pay attention to yourself, and that's it. Don't pay attention to them, because they'll just make it harder if I paid attention to them.
Would you be afraid to be alone with a kid right now?
Yes.
And this is kind of obvious, but tell me why. Why I'd be afraid to be alone with a kid because?
Not because I'll offend them, it's more because they could falsely accuse me of doing things. And really, I'd never do that again, and I don't want anybody falsely accusing me or accusing me of anything like that.
Good, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's really freaking smart. I know I have my little neighbor kids, little girl's like 7 years old. I won't be alone with her. I don't have a history or anything, but it's so easy to get accused.
Yeah.
In your case, they're going to believe the kid.
Yeah.
That would suck. Where do you think you learned to do that? Why?
Well, when I was in jail.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When I was in jail, I was in sex offender treatment for a long time, for the whole stay that I was there. And I learned all these techniques from them. And I also learned it when I was out and doing sex offender treatment while on probation. I graduated out of the sex offenders counseling, but in my mind I still go through it, and I still do what I need to do to make it through the day.
Can you tell me what are some of the things they taught you?
One is to have empathy for the people that I offended, and also to not minimize what I did was right. Like, not to minimize it and make it right. It's more to be honest with yourself and make sure that nobody understands that a different way of what you're thinking.
It's a great.
And one of the other skills is to talk it out.
Like what?
Like I'm doing now. I talk out what I done in the past, and I only do it to people that actually are either interested or in me. Like, say for instance, if I had a girlfriend, I would tell her, not right away, but I would tell her when I think it's the right time. And I would definitely tell her if she wanted kids, because I do not want to be put in a situation where I have to deal with a wife not knowing that I have issues like that. So I prefer to tell my girlfriends what I actually did, so they know not to completely say, oh, he's okay with kids. Yeah.
You have as much insight as almost anybody I've interviewed, man. And I've interviewed hundreds of people. You really have good insight. And most people who fuck up spend most of their time saying it wasn't a fuck up. And I wasn't wrong. As most people spend their life justifying themselves, and you're not. You're just saying, I'm not proud of it, I'm sorry. Thank you for this, it's really good. What, if you could say something, I assume you've had no contact with those kids, with those children.
I've had contact with them, but that's because they're older. They're like in their 20s now. They're all in their 20s now.
Have you talked to them about it at all?
No, I have not talked to them about it, but um, I I have, like, for instance, the main one that I offended, the girl. Her name's Angel, and she came to my work one day and started working at the Port City Development Center, and I was shocked and scared at the same time because I was like, that couldn't be, and I'm like, oh shoot, it is. And then she came up to me and said, I forgive you, and I'm like, what? And that's what made it a little bit easier and a little bit harder because I wasn't expecting her to forgive me.
If you could say something to her now, now it's easier, what would you say to her?
Um, I'd have to say I'm definitely sorry. And I hope she has a better life than me. Uh, I mean that by what I mean by that is I hope she never repeats what I did.
I am as honored to be in this conversation as any activity in me. Thank you for this. This is good. People will hear this. People will hear you and your message. This is really, really powerful. We all do stupid things in our lives. And you were awful young. And at 15, we're all freaking young. And I'm sorry it happened, dude. Do you have contact with your mother at all?
Yeah. I still talk to her often, like, not often enough, but I still talk to her enough to keep in contact with her. I go and visit her every once in a while. She lives in Warrenton, which is like really close to Astoria. And then the only thing about my mom is she thinks I'm innocent, and I try to tell her every day that I'm not. But she believes that I'm innocent, and it's kind of hard to talk to her when she thinks I'm innocent and I know that I'm fully guilty of it.
Why do you think she thinks you're innocent?
Because I don't think she would understand. I don't think she wants to understand how that's possible with me offending, even though I had a good life with her. But she doesn't understand that. She only understands that she had a good life with me. And I think the other reason is because she just doesn't want to think about it in a negative way.
Yeah. What advice would you have for a kid or an adult? At this point, you can talk to anybody who is thinking about or has thoughts of touching kids. What would you say to them? And it's going to be thousands of them watching this video. What do you say to somebody who's having those kind of feelings?
I'd have to say, don't do it, and if you think about it, try to seek treatment, because I think it's the best thing for everybody. And it's also good to exercise your empathy toward people.
Please tell us what you mean.
What I mean by that is, it's good to realize if you do it, you'll get in trouble, you'll break their trust, and most of the time, if you do anything like that, you don't think about that. You just do it, and I'm just saying that it's better off if you don't do it at all, because if you do it, you'll end up in a situation like me, having to register every year.
You were going somewhere interesting, I thought. You were saying you need to show empathy as a way to stop yourself from doing it. What is that? That sounds like one of the techniques they were helping you to do.
Yeah.
Tell me what does that mean? What do they want you to do? What do you do?
I put myself in their shoes, and I I say, well, do I really want people to hurt me? And then I realized that no, I don't want to do that, because I don't want anybody hurting me. So why should I hurt anybody else?
Were you able to empathize when you were a kid, when you were 15?
No, because I didn't even know what empathy was. I had no idea that like I didn't think of. I think most kids these days and grown-ups don't think of putting themselves in other people's shoes until it's too late.
Yeah. You know, I am in no, I have no standing to say this, but I'll say it anyway. You were 15. People do stupid things when they're 15. You should be forgiven. You're 15.
Yeah. I can't forgive myself though. It's very hard to forgive myself, because I know what went on when I was 15, and it was mainly because I feel if I forgive myself, that everything will turn out worse than it is, because then I'll think, oh, it's okay to do it again. It's not okay. So I choose not to forgive myself due to the fact I don't want to do it again.
Good. What do you say to people? I assume mostly you keep it to yourself. Is there some people who are really mean to people who've abused kids. Have you ever run into that? Are people?
I've ran into a couple people like that, but I haven't ran into that myself. So
Cool. All right. The Bob, are there anything that you would like to ask or to participate in this?
Yeah, I was thinking of when empathy came, like
Yeah.
what was that point, or do you remember?
How did you learn it? What did it feel? What did they tell you?
they told me in Hillcrest, empathy, the word empathy, and I automatically took it in because I at that time I didn't want to do it ever again either, and that was after the fact that I went in jail and started doing treatment, and basically it came from just the treatment itself was very helpful. And the one that I thought was the most powerful word was empathy and sympathizing.
Tell us what does the word empathy mean to you?
To me, empathy means to put yourself in other people's shoes, and also to think before you act. And not everybody does that.
And almost no 15-year-old does, by the way.
Yeah.
What what are your goals? What do you see for yourself in the future? The near term and the longer future?
I want to be a janitor. Let's see. I when let's see. Yeah, when I was a kid, when I was like 14, 13, I wanted to be a pilot. But that never happened because I started liking cleaning up the bathrooms and taking care of other things besides going and flying. And I'm kind of afraid of going to the flying technique because of the fact that I still have a lot of depression, and I feel if I had a lot of depression and I went up there in the plane that I would crash it, trying to end my life.
So where do you see yourself? What would you like to be doing in 5 years?
Have a well-paid job, moving out on my own, living on my own, still have the support that I need, but yet also to live independently. Like, say for instance, I wanna go to like a program called Rainbow, or one of those programs that have supportive living skills. And I want to go through that first, and then after that I want to see if I can make it on my own, because I know I can.
I think you can too. Bob? else you would? Well, your last question was
About
empathy was great.
empathy. Yeah. No, I was just thinking that's like changing. Like if you don't have that, you're not going to get the insight that he has. You know, and the
Yeah, you could abstain because you were afraid of the law.
but you could work around the law.
You try
can't
to work around it.
yourself. You know, you can think about ways of getting away with it when you don't have empathy.
Yeah,
But I don't think Anders. You know, once you feel how bad
then you're not going to do it for
how bad it
internal.
was, you know, how bad it was for them, and then you feel it yourself, you're less likely to want to hurt anybody. And that's all you're doing is hurting people. But if you don't think of their point, you just think of the pleasure
Yeah, man.
about it, and that's like, it's a lot of that in the world. I mean, some people who do it and think it's okay, like in other cultures or other situations where it's not with children, but it's not consensual.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no empathy, and people really hurt each other through that.
Is there anybody in the treatment groups that you think back on? Were there any therapists in particular that really meant a lot to you? Anybody you want to thank?
Yeah. Casey Weber and Cynthia, as I think it's Cynthia Steinhauser.
Tell us about it.
They were the ones that I was most inflicted with, because they had like a friendly relationship with everybody that went there. And they didn't hold anything against you when you told them anything. They took it all in, but they didn't like hold it against you, and they also didn't use it against you. Like, there's been people in the past, like some of my doctors that prescribe meds. One of them in Pacific, he would actually smear in my face that I was a sex offender.
What
I
doctor
didn't like
was
it.
that?
Dr. Green.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was gonna guess.
Yeah. He didn't like the idea of treating anybody with respect with that kind of crime.
Yeah, he had disrespect for other clients. Like
As well.
I was there. Yeah. Doctor.
It's interesting because we tell people you're supposed to respect all kinds of preferences and all kinds of, if a person has a mental illness, whatever they have, we respect everybody
Yeah.
except those we don't want to respect.
This guy's, if you could interview this guy, he is, you know, the example of how not to. I mean, it's just a psychiatrist with an ego and a lot of issues.
He's a psychiatrist, so
Yeah,
brilliant.
psychiatrist,
Wonderful.
giving out meds and advice.
Have they ever tried to give you medications at all for?
Not for the behavior, but mainly for my depression and also my obsession with. He said that I had an obsession with sex, so he was claiming me to be obsessive compulsive. And for a while, at the last house, they were titling me that. And I really didn't like it because I knew it wasn't true. And then when I came to Bob and I talked to the new psychiatrist, she said, "You don't have any excessive compulsive behaviors that we know of." The only thing that you're concessive with is gambling, but that's a normal thing. And I'm like, well, at least I'm right.
If you could say the following words for me, because I have to edit this. If you would say, I once went and visited a psychiatrist. That's all you have to say, because I'm going to edit that in at the beginning of what you said.
I once visited a psychiatrist.
You see where I'm going. Why? It's just because they're never going. I'm going to edit out all my questions. And the other thing, if you don't mind, is when I was 15, I did some dumb things.
Oh, okay.
Can you say that? I assume you agree.
Yeah. When I was 15, I did some dumb things.
Perfect. Normally, these interviews go for 2 hours. I have plenty of content. Is there other shit you want to talk about, dude?
Not that I can think of. There's nothing I can think of that is like as important as this, as what I told you, or
Let me. I'm going to go back to what, and it's sort of, it's a core, in a way, a core question. Why'd you do it? Why that?
I did it out of anger and frustration, not toward my dad, but it was actually mostly anger, frustration, and jealousy. All of it built up, and it was scary when I first did it, and I don't ever want to do it again because of how scary it was. Because once you do it, you're afraid to get caught. And if you get caught, you know there's consequences, but you don't know how serious. Like me, I thought that I would just move out, so I did it. So I did it to try to get moved out of the house. But instead they had a different plan for me, which was put me in jail and keep me in jail for 6 years. And at that time, I didn't realize that you can get locked up even when you're 11, you can get locked up. Yeah.
How do you feel these days? I mean, would you like, if you had a girlfriend, would you like to be having sex with her? But do you have feelings toward girls and adult girls and all that now? What do you when you see a pretty girl walk by?
I prefer, like, sometimes I see younger girls, and then I'm like, no, they're too young, so turn away. And then, but most of the time, I actually go for girls. But there has been times, like one time that I went for a guy, but I didn't like the experience. So I stopped doing that real quick. And now I'm mainly too shy to go around girls or anybody in general, because I don't know what they'll say, and I try to put myself in their shoes a lot more than normal people. It's like if I feel that they don't want to be talked to, then I feel that before I even talk to them. And I'm like, okay, they don't want to be talked to because I can see it from their actions.
For what it's worth, I don't even have to look at Bob. I know. He and I go, when he and I see a really pretty girl and we think about going up and talking to her, we feel the same way. Oh, God, she doesn't want to talk to me. I'll just go over here and do something else. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You get shy. And you get. I mean, ideally, what would you like? What would you like if you had your, if you could have a partner or a, what would you like?
I would like a lady, like a my age type lady, like 35 or 36 or anywhere around my age. I would prefer women over men though, and that's only because of the fact that I've had bad experiences with men.
I assume if you're in prison for 6 years, you had bad experiences with men.
Yeah,
You had experiences with men. I mean, well, that's prison.
yeah.
I'm done. That was fabulous. Thank you. From sincerely, that was really, really good. Hit those lights for me right there, my friend. Thank you. I respect you.